the moment Cynthia stepped into the private office on the 42nd floor of Park Industries in Manhattan. Every instinct in her body screamed that something was terribly wrong. The room was beautiful. Stunning, actually. The kind of space she dreamed about designing for her wealthiest clients. Modern furniture with clean lines. Original artwork on the walls that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. A view of the Manhattan skyline that stretched for miles in every direction. But none of that mattered. Because the man standing behind the massive oak desk was looking at her like she had just walked out of a grave. He was Korean, tall, broad shoulders that filled out his charcoal gray suit like it was sewn directly onto his body. His dark hair was swept back from his face, styled with the kind of precision that spoke of expensive barbers and meticulous morning routines. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. His cheekbones were high and defined. He was, objectively, one of the most handsome men Cynthia had ever seen in her 27 years of life. But his eyes, God, his eyes. They were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Dark brown, almost black, and filled with something she couldn't identify. Shock, pain, hunger, all of it swirling together in a gaze that pinned her to the spot like a butterfly on a collector's board. Cynthia clutched her portfolio against her chest. Her heart was already beating too fast. Her palms were starting to sweat against the leather case. She was just a freelance interior designer. She had been doing this for 5 years. She had walked into dozens of offices just like this one, met with wealthy clients who wanted their spaces transformed. This was supposed to be routine. But nothing about this felt routine. "Mr. Park," her voice came out steady, which was a miracle considering her nerves. "I'm Cynthia Brooks. Your assistant scheduled a consultation about the penthouse redesign project." He didn't respond, didn't blink, didn't move a single muscle. He just stared. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Cynthia glanced toward the door behind her, suddenly very aware of how far away it was, how solid it looked, how completely alone she was with this strange, intense man. "Mr. Park," she tried again. "Is everything okay? Should I come back another time?" He moved then, but not toward his desk, not toward a handshake or a professional greeting. He moved around the desk slowly, deliberately. His expensive shoes made no sound on the plush carpet. His eyes never left her face. He circled her like a predator sizing up prey, and Cynthia felt every instinct in her body screaming at her to run. But where would she go? The door was behind her, but he was between her and the exit now. And something about the look in his eyes told her that running would only make things worse. He stopped directly in front of her. Close. Too close. She could smell his cologne now, something rich and masculine and probably worth more than her monthly rent. She could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the slight flare of his nostrils as he breathed. His hand reached toward her shoulder. Cynthia stepped back instinctively, her back pressing against the closed door. Her portfolio fell from her hands and hit the carpet with a soft thud. "Who sent you?" His voice was low, controlled, but there was an undercurrent of something dangerous in it, something barely contained. "What? Nobody sent me. Your assistant." "You're lying." He stepped closer again, eliminating the distance she had tried to create. His fingers brushed her arm, and she flinched like she had been burned. "Who told you to come here looking like her?" Cynthia's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her wide eyes searched his face desperately, looking for any sign of reason. Any hint that this was some kind of misunderstanding that could be explained away. She found nothing but intensity, obsession. A man looking at her like she held the answer to every question he had ever asked. "Looking like who?" The words came out as barely more than a whisper. His jaw tightened. Something flickered in his gaze. Pain, rage, longing, all tangled together in a way that made her stomach flip with fear. "My wife." The words hung in the air between them. Heavy, impossible, completely insane. Cynthia opened her mouth to respond, to tell him he was crazy, to demand that he let her leave, to scream for help. But nothing came out, because the look on his face told her one terrifying truth. This man had no intention of letting her walk out of this office. Now, before we continue with what happens next, I need you to do me a quick favor. If you're enjoying this story so far, please click that subscribe button right now. Click subscribe. And while you're at it, you can drop a like on this video and comment below what city you're watching from and your favorite part of the story when you are done listening. I want to see how far this story reaches tonight. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next because this story is about to get absolutely wild. Okay, let's get back into it. Sung-min Park had built his empire on control. Control over his businesses, control over his enemies, control over every aspect of his carefully constructed life. He was the CEO of Park Industries, a legitimate business empire that stretched across real estate, technology, and hospitality. His buildings dotted the skylines of Manhattan, Beverly Hills, and San Francisco. His tech investments had made him a billionaire 3 times over. His name appeared in Forbes every year without fail. But that was just the surface, the public face he showed to the world. Behind closed doors, Sung-min controlled something far more powerful, a network that had been built by his father and his grandfather before him, a Korean syndicate that operated in the shadows of America's wealthiest cities. They moved money. They provided protection. They solved problems that couldn't be solved through legal channels. Sung-min had inherited this world at 25 when his father died of a heart attack. He had spent the last 12 years building it into something even more powerful than his father could have imagined. He had everything a man could want: power, wealth, respect, fear. But 3 years ago, he lost the only thing that ever truly mattered to him. Yuna. His wife, his partner, his reason for breathing. She had died in a car accident on a rainy night in Connecticut. Her car had gone off the road and into a ravine. By the time the authorities found the wreckage, the body had been swept away by the river. They searched for weeks. Sung-min had hired private teams to search for months. They never found her. He had refused to accept it at first, refused to believe that she could be gone. He had spent 2 years turning over every stone, chasing every lead, following every whisper of hope. His men had finally convinced him to stop, to accept reality, to move on. But Sung-min had never moved on. Not really. He had simply buried his grief beneath layers of work and control and cold, calculated decisions. Until today. Until a woman with natural, curly hair and wide brown eyes walked into his office and made his heart stop beating. She wasn't Yuna, he knew that. Yuna had been Korean. This woman was black. Their skin tones were completely different. But the face, God, the face. The same delicate bone structure, the same shape of the eyes, the same curve of the lips, the same way she tilted her head when she was confused. Even the way she clutched her portfolio against her chest reminded him of how Yuna used to hold her sketchbook. It was impossible, completely, utterly impossible. And yet, here she was, standing in his office, looking at him with fear in those achingly familiar eyes. I don't understand what's happening. Her voice trembled slightly, but she was fighting to stay calm. He could see it in the way she squared her shoulders, the way she lifted her chin despite her obvious terror. I'm just here for a design consultation. I don't know anything about your wife. I've never even met you before. Sung-min studied her for a long moment. His mind was racing, processing information faster than he could consciously track. She was telling the truth. He could see it in her body language. She had no idea who he really was, no idea what she had walked into, no idea that her face had just turned her into the most important person in his world. "What's your name?" he asked. His voice came out calmer now, more controlled. Cynthia Brooks." "How old are you, Cynthia Brooks?" 27, she frowned at the question. "Why does that matter?" 27. Yuna had been 30 when she died, 3 years older than this woman. "Where are you from?" "Newark. I grew up in Newark." Her frown deepened. "Look, I really don't understand what's happening here. If you don't want to proceed with the consultation, that's fine. I'll just go and we can pretend this never happened." She bent down to pick up her fallen portfolio, clearly intending to make her escape. Sung-min's hand shot out and caught her wrist. She froze. Her eyes went wide with fear again. "Let me go." The words came out shaky but defiant. "I can't do that." "What?" "I can't let you leave. Not yet. Not until I understand." "Understand what?" She tried to pull her wrist free, but his grip was like iron. "You're scaring me. Please just let me go." Something in her voice made his chest tighten. She sounded so afraid, so vulnerable, so unlike Yuna, who had never been afraid of anything. But the face, that face. He couldn't let her walk out of here, not until he had answers. Sungmin released her wrist and stepped back, giving her some space. He pulled out his phone and spoke rapidly in Korean, issuing orders to whoever was on the other end. Cynthia watched him with wide, frightened eyes. When he finished the call, she was pressed against the door again, her hand fumbling behind her for the handle. "I'm going to leave now," she said, her voice steadier than before. "And you're not going to stop me. Because whatever is happening here, whatever you think I am, you're wrong. I'm nobody. I'm just a designer from Newark who answered an email about a job." She found the handle, turned it, pulled. The door didn't budge. Her face went pale. "It locks automatically," Sungmin said calmly. "Security feature. Only opens from the inside with my authorization." Cynthia spun back to face him. Now the fear was giving way to anger. Good. Anger was easier to deal with than terror. "You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping. I'll scream. Someone will hear me." "The walls are soundproofed. Another security feature." "I have friends, people who know where I am. They'll come looking for me." "Your meeting was scheduled through a private channel. No one knows you're here except my assistant, and she answers to me." The color drained from Cynthia's face as the reality of her situation sank in. She was trapped in a locked office 42 floors above the street with a man who clearly wasn't going to let her leave. Before she could say anything else, there was a buzz at the door. Sungmin pressed a button on his desk, and the lock clicked open. 2 men in dark suits entered the room. They were large and intimidating, with the kind of build that suggested they were used to physical confrontation. Cynthia looked between them and Sungmin, her fear returning in full force. "Take her to the penthouse," Sungmin ordered. "Make sure she's comfortable, but don't let her leave." "No," Cynthia tried to run, but the men were too fast. They caught her arms gently but firmly, preventing her escape. "You can't do this. Let me go." She struggled against them as they guided her toward the door. She screamed. She kicked. She fought with everything she had. But it wasn't enough. As she was pulled from the office, she looked back at Sungmin one last time. He was standing by his desk, watching her with that same intense, unreadable expression. "Why?" she shouted. "Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer, but something in his eyes shifted, something that almost looked like pain. The door closed behind her, cutting off her view of him. And Cynthia realized with horrible certainty that her life had just changed forever. Cynthia woke up in a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The bed she was lying on was massive, king-sized at least, with sheets that felt like liquid silk against her skin. The headboard was upholstered in cream-colored leather. The mattress was so soft it felt like sleeping on a cloud. The room itself was decorated in neutral tones. Cream walls, champagne-colored curtains, furniture in soft grays and muted golds. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked carefully curated. Everything looked like a prison designed to make its captive forget she was trapped. Cynthia sat up slowly, her head pounding. She remembered struggling with the guards, remembered being brought to a car, remembered a needle prick in her arm. They had drugged her. Panic surged through her chest as she scrambled off the bed. She was still wearing her own clothes, thank God. Her cream blouse and black slacks from the meeting. Her shoes were gone, but otherwise she appeared unharmed. She ran to the windows first, floor-to-ceiling glass that overlooked what could only be Central Park. She was high up, very high up. The trees looked like broccoli florets from this height. The people on the paths below were barely visible specks. She tried to open the windows. They didn't budge, sealed shut. She ran to the door next, a heavy wooden thing that looked antique but felt like it was reinforced with steel. She pulled the handle, locked. She pounded on it with her fists. "Help! Someone help me! I've been kidnapped." No response, nothing but silence from the other side. She ran back to the windows and looked for any kind of latch or emergency release. Nothing. The glass was probably bulletproof. She searched the room for her phone, her purse, anything she could use to call for help. All of it was gone. Even her watch had been taken. Cynthia sank to the floor with her back against the bed and tried to control her breathing. Her heart was racing. Her hands were shaking. She felt like she might throw up. Think, she told herself. Think. She was trapped in what appeared to be a luxury penthouse in Manhattan. She had been kidnapped by a man who thought she looked like his dead wife. She had no phone, no wallet, no way to contact anyone. Her best friend Monique knew she had a meeting today, but not where. Her landlord wouldn't notice she was missing for days. She had no family to wonder where she was, no boyfriend to raise an alarm. Nobody was coming to save her. The realization hit her like a punch to the stomach. She was completely, utterly alone. Tears began to stream down her face despite her best efforts to hold them back. She had worked so hard to build a life for herself, to escape the foster care system that had raised her, to become someone, to matter. And now she was a prisoner because of her face, because she happened to look like some dead woman she had never even heard of. It was so unfair, so completely, cosmically unfair. Cynthia cried until she couldn't cry anymore. Then she wiped her face with her hands, took a deep breath, and forced herself to stand up. Self-pity wasn't going to get her out of here. She needed to think. She needed a plan. She spent the next hour going over every inch of the room. The bathroom was attached and stocked with expensive toiletries. No window, no other exit. The closet was empty except for a few hangers. The furniture was all too heavy to move or use as a weapon. She tried prying at the door hinges with a hairpin she found in the bathroom. No luck. She tried breaking the window with a decorative sculpture. It didn't even leave a scratch on the glass. She was still trying when the door finally opened. Cynthia spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. A woman entered, Korean, probably in her mid-30s. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her face was completely expressionless. She was wearing a tailored black dress and carrying a garment bag. "Miss Brooks," her voice was flat, professional, cold. "I am Hannah, Mr. Park's personal assistant." "I want to leave," Cynthia said immediately. "You can't keep me here. This is illegal. I'll go to the police." Hannah's expression didn't change. "Mr. Park requests your presence for dinner. You will find appropriate attire in this bag." She hung the garment bag on a hook by the closet door. "I'm not having dinner with my kidnapper." "You will eat, one way or another." Hannah's tone remained completely neutral, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she wasn't making an idle threat. "Dinner is in 1 hour. I will return to escort you." She turned to leave. "Wait," Cynthia grabbed her arm. "Please, you have to help me. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why he's doing this. I'm just a designer. I'm nobody." Hannah looked down at the hand on her arm, then back up at Cynthia's face. For a moment, something flickered in her expression, something that might have been sympathy. Then it was gone. "Mr. Park will explain everything at dinner. I suggest you cooperate." She pulled her arm free and walked out. The door locked behind her with a decisive click. Cynthia stood alone in the room, shaking with frustration and fear. 1 hour later, she was escorted to a dining room that took her breath away despite her circumstances. The space was enormous. A long table made of dark wood dominated the center, surrounded by chairs upholstered in deep burgundy leather. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm light over everything. One entire wall was made of windows, offering a view of the city that sparkled like a million diamonds in the evening darkness. Sungmin was already seated at the head of the table. He had changed from his suit into something more casual. A black button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that spoke of regular visits to a gym. His hair was slightly less perfect now, as if he had run his hands through it multiple times. He looked up when she entered. His eyes did that thing again, that intense starring thing that made her feel like he was seeing someone else when he looked at her. Cynthia had refused to wear the dress in the garment bag. She was still in her own blouse and slacks, wrinkled now from sleeping in them. It was a small act of defiance, but it was all she had. "Please sit." He gestured to the chair at his right hand. "I'd rather stand." "Suit yourself." He picked up a glass of wine and took a slow sip, watching her over the rim. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Finally, Cynthia couldn't take it anymore. "You must have questions. That's what you said earlier, before you had your goons drug me and drag me here against my will. I do have questions, but first I want to show you something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. He slid it across the table toward her. Cynthia didn't want to look. She didn't want to play whatever game he was playing, but curiosity got the better of her. She picked up the photograph. Her blood ran cold. It was a picture of a Korean woman at what appeared to be a garden party. The woman was laughing at something off camera, her head tilted back with joy. She was wearing a white sundress. Her hair was long and dark, flowing over her shoulders. She looked elegant, kind, happy. She looked exactly like Cynthia. Not similar, not resemblant, exactly like her. The same bone structure, the same eyes, the same smile, the same way of tilting her head. If Cynthia didn't know better, she would have thought she was looking at a photograph of herself. But that was impossible. She had never worn that dress, never been to that party, never smiled like that with such carefree joy. Her name was Yuna, Sungmin said quietly. She was my wife. She died 3 years ago. Cynthia stared at the photograph, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. This is insane. Her voice came out shaky. I'm not your wife. I'm not anyone's wife. I'm a designer from Newark. I know who you are. I had you investigated within an hour of you walking into my office. Sungmin's voice was calm, measured, like he was discussing the weather instead of explaining why he had kidnapped her. Cynthia Brooks, born in 1997 in Newark, New Jersey. No birth parents on record. Raised in the foster care system. Aged out at 18. Put yourself through community college while working 3 jobs. Built a small but successful interior design business from nothing. Cynthia felt exposed, violated. This stranger knew more about her life than some of her friends did. If you know all that, then you know I have nothing to do with your wife. I know no such thing. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. Yuna was also adopted. She was raised by a wealthy Korean family in Los Angeles. She never knew her birth parents. She searched for them for years before we met. She never found them. Cynthia's hands trembled as she held the photograph. What are you saying? I'm saying that 2 women who look identical don't exist by accident. I'm saying that Yuna spent her whole life wondering where she came from. I'm saying that you appeared in my office looking like her ghost, and I don't believe in coincidences. The room felt like it was spinning. Cynthia grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. She was a nobody from Newark. She had no family, no history, no roots. She was nobody. I want to leave. The words came out weak, desperate. Please, I can't help you. I don't know anything about your wife or where she came from. I'm nobody. Sungmin studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Something that almost looked like compassion. You're not nobody, he said quietly. And until I understand why you exist, you stay. Cynthia wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to throw the photograph in his face and demand her freedom. But the woman in the picture seemed to stare back at her. That face, that impossible, undeniable face. What if there were answers here? What if this nightmare was connected to the questions she had asked herself her entire life? Who am I? Where do I come from? Why did nobody want me? She sank into the chair beside him, all the fight draining out of her. What do you want from me? She whispered. The truth, whatever it is. Later that night, Cynthia lay awake in the locked bedroom, staring at the ceiling. She should be sleeping. She should be conserving her strength for whatever tomorrow would bring. She should be planning her escape. Instead, she was thinking about the photograph. About Yuna. About the impossible coincidence that had brought her here. She had spent her entire childhood wondering about her birth parents, wondering why they had given her up, wondering if there was something wrong with her that made her unlovable, unkeepable. Foster home after foster home, each one temporary, each one a reminder that she didn't belong anywhere. She had stopped wondering eventually, had convinced herself that it didn't matter, that she was better off not knowing, that she had built a life for herself and that was enough. But now, in the darkness of her gilded cage, the old questions came flooding back. What if there was a reason she looked like Yuna? What if there was a connection she had never known about? What if there were answers here that could finally tell her who she really was? The questions swirled in her mind until exhaustion finally pulled her under. She woke to the sound of the door unlocking. Cynthia sat up quickly, her heart racing. The clock on the nightstand said it was nearly 3 in the morning. Hana wouldn't be coming at this hour. Sung-min wouldn't either. So who? A figure appeared in the doorway. A man, not one of the guards she had seen earlier. He was Korean, with a scar that ran across his throat like someone had tried to slit it and failed. His eyes were cold, empty, like a shark's eyes. He smiled when he saw her awake, and the expression was somehow more terrifying than his blank stare. "So it's true," he whispered. "The dead woman walks." Before Cynthia could scream, he was across the room. His hand clamped over her mouth, muffling her cry for help. "SHH," he breathed against her ear. "We have so much to talk about." The man's hand pressed tight against Cynthia's mouth, his fingers digging into her cheeks hard enough to leave bruises. She struggled against him, kicking and clawing, but he was too strong. His other arm wrapped around her waist like a steel band, pinning her arms to her sides. "Stop fighting," he hissed. "I'm not here to hurt you, not yet anyway." Cynthia didn't stop fighting. She bit down on his palm as hard as she could, tasting blood. He cursed and yanked his hand away. She used the moment of distraction to drive her elbow back into his ribs and twist free of his grip. She ran for the door. He caught her before she made it 3 steps. His hand fisted in her hair, yanking her head back so sharply that stars exploded across her vision. "I said stop fighting." This time, his voice was pure menace, all pretense of calm gone. He dragged her toward the door by her hair, and Cynthia stumbled along behind him, her scalp screaming in pain. They were in the hallway now, moving toward what looked like a service entrance. "Where are you taking me?" she gasped. "Somewhere Sung-min won't find you." "Why? What do you want?" He laughed. The sound was cold and humorless. "What I want is to destroy Sung-min Park, and you, my dear dead woman, are going to help me do it." They reached the service entrance. He shouldered the door open, revealing a dimly lit stairwell. The concrete steps stretched downward into darkness. Cynthia's heart sank. If he got her out of the building, she might never be seen again. She was trading one kidnapper for another, and something told her this one wouldn't provide silk sheets and fancy dinners. She screamed as loud as she could. The sound echoed off the concrete walls, bouncing up and down the stairwell. The man cursed and slammed her against the wall, knocking the air from her lungs. "Stupid girl, no one can hear you." "I can." The voice came from the doorway behind them, cold, controlled, deadly. Sung-min stood in the entrance to the stairwell. He was wearing dark pants and a white t-shirt, like he had dressed in a hurry. Behind him, 2 of his guards flanked the doorway with weapons drawn. The scarred man smiled. He pulled Cynthia in front of him like a shield, his arm wrapped around her throat. "Hello, little brother." Cynthia felt Sung-min's energy shift. The control he always seemed to carry cracked, just for a moment. Shock flickered across his face before the mask slammed back into place. "Yi-won," the name came out flat, hard. "I should have known my brother's dog would still be lurking in the shadows." "Your brother? You mean the one you murdered to take his throne?" Sung-min's jaw tightened. "I didn't murder T-min." "Liar." Yi-won's arm tightened around Cynthia's throat, cutting off her air. "He died 6 months before your precious wife, and now she's back from the dead. Convenient, don't you think?" "Let her go. She has nothing to do with this." "She has everything to do with this. She's the key to destroying you, and I'm not letting that key out of my sight." Cynthia clawed at Yi-won's arm, fighting for breath. Black spots were appearing at the edges of her vision. She was going to pass out, going to die, right here in this stairwell because 2 men were fighting over ghosts. "She's not Yuna." Sung-min's voice cut through the haze in her brain. "She's an innocent woman who has nothing to do with our world." "Innocent?" Yi-won laughed. "Look at her face. She's the perfect copy of the woman you loved. The woman you probably killed when she got too close to the truth about T-min." "I didn't kill Yuna." "Then who did? Because someone ran her off that road, and you're the only one who had anything to gain." The arm around Cynthia's throat loosened slightly as Yi-won got caught up in his accusations. She gasped in air, her vision clearing. Sung-min took a step forward. His guards moved with him. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Yuna was everything to me. I would never have hurt her. Pretty words, but I've seen what you're capable of. I watched you build your empire on your brother's corpse. I watched you take everything that should have been his. Taemin died in a car accident. I had nothing to do with it. Car accident? Yiwon spat the words like poison. Funny how everyone around you seems to die in car accidents. First your brother, then your wife. Maybe this one will be next. His arm tightened around Cynthia's throat again. Sungmin moved. It happened so fast that Cynthia barely processed it. One moment, Yiwon had her trapped. The next, Sungmin was there, his hand locked around Yiwon's wrist, twisting it at an angle that made the scarred man cry out in pain. Yiwon released her, and Cynthia stumbled forward into the arms of one of the guards. Sungmin and Yiwon faced each other in the narrow stairwell. The tension between them was palpable. Two men with history, two men with blood between them. Go, Sungmin said to Yiwon. His voice was ice. But know this, if you come near her again, I will end you. Big words from a man who destroys everything he loves. Yiwon backed toward the stairs, his eyes never leaving Sungmin's face. This isn't over, little brother. The truth always comes out eventually. He disappeared into the darkness of the stairwell. Sungmin stared after him for a long moment. Then he turned to Cynthia. Are you hurt? She was shaking, trembling from head to toe with adrenaline and fear and the memory of that arm crushing her windpipe. You people are insane, she whispered. All of you completely insane. Sungmin reached for her, and she flinched away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. Something flickered in his eyes, something that almost looked like hurt. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me, Cynthia laughed bitterly. You kidnapped me. You're keeping me prisoner. And now some psycho with a scar on his neck is trying to use me to destroy you. How is any of this protection? Yiwon is dangerous. If he had gotten you out of this building, you would be dead by morning. And if I stay here, what happens to me then? Sungmin didn't answer. His jaw was tight. His eyes were troubled. Cynthia shook her head. Take me back to the room. Lock me in again. But don't pretend you're the hero of this story. You're just another monster fighting for control of his kingdom. She walked past him without looking back. In the locked room, Cynthia sat on the floor with her back against the wall and tried to make sense of what had just happened. Yiwon, that was what Sungmin had called him. Apparently he was connected to Sungmin's brother, a brother who died 6 months before Yuna. Both of them died in car accidents, both deaths suspicious to at least one person. Yiwon believed Sungmin was a murderer, a man who killed his own brother and wife to consolidate power. Was he right? Cynthia thought about the intensity in Sungmin's eyes when he talked about Yuna, the pain that seemed to live just beneath his controlled surface, the way his voice had cracked when he denied killing her. He seemed genuine, but then again, the best monsters always did. She didn't know who to believe. She didn't know what the truth was. All she knew was that she was trapped in the middle of a war she didn't understand, and the only way out was to find answers. Who was Yuna? Why did they look identical? And who really killed the woman whose face Cynthia wore? 3 days passed. 3 days of locked doors and expensive meals, and Sungmin trying to convince her that he wasn't the villain of this story. On the 4th day, he came to her with a file. DNA results, he said, sliding it across the breakfast table. Cynthia had finally started wearing the clothes he provided, not because she had given up hope of escape, but because wearing the same outfit for 4 days was becoming unbearable. The designer dress she wore now was soft and comfortable, cream-colored with small buttons down the front. She looked at the file but didn't touch it. What kind of DNA results? I had my team collect samples from your room, hair, skin cells. I compared them to Yuna's profile. Cynthia felt her stomach tighten. You had no right to do that. I had no right to kidnap you either, but here we are. There was a hint of dark humor in his voice. Look at the results. She didn't want to. Whatever was in that file would change things. She could feel it. But she had spent her whole life wondering, searching for answers in empty files and sealed records and social workers who shrugged and said they didn't know. She opened the file. The page was full of scientific terminology she didn't fully understand. Charts and graphs and percentages, but one line stood out. Shared DNA, 50%. Cynthia read it again, then once more. What does this mean? It means you and Una share half of your genetic material, the same percentage shared by full siblings. The room tilted. Cynthia gripped the edge of the table. Siblings. Sisters. Sisters. She had a sister. Had a sister. Past tense. I have a sister, Cynthia whispered. Then, as the full weight of it hit her, had a sister, and she's dead, and I never even knew she existed. The tears came without warning, hot and sudden and completely beyond her control. They streamed down her face as something inside her broke open. All those years in foster care, all those nights wondering if anyone in the world shared her blood, all those empty spaces in her heart where family should have been. And now she knew. She had a sister, a real biological sister. And she would never meet her, never know her, never hear her voice or learn her laugh or find out what they might have had in common. Una was dead. Cynthia's sister was dead. And Cynthia had never even known her name. Sungmin watched her cry. For once there was no intensity in his gaze, no hunger or obsession, just sadness. He moved from his chair and knelt beside hers. He didn't touch her, just stayed close, present. Una searched for her birth family, he said quietly. She spent years looking, hired investigators, followed leads across the country. She never found them. Cynthia wiped her eyes with shaking hands. What happened to them, our parents? We don't know yet. My team is still investigating. But we know this much. You and Una were born in Newark in 1997 and 1994, respectively. 3 years apart. Same mother, same father. Then why were we separated? Why didn't anyone tell me? We're working on that. Cynthia looked at the DNA results again, the numbers that confirmed what her face had already suggested. She was connected to Una, really connected. Not just a strange coincidence, but blood, family. And someone had killed her family. Who did it? Her voice came out harder than before. The grief was already transforming into something else, something fiercer. Who killed her? Sungmin's jaw tightened. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Yiwon thinks it was you. Yiwon is wrong. Prove it. He met her eyes. There was something new in his expression now. Respect, maybe. Like he was finally seeing her as something more than just a face. That's exactly what I intend to do. Over the next week, Cynthia went from prisoner to something more complicated. She still couldn't leave. The doors were still locked. Her phone was still gone, but Sungmin began including her in his investigation, sharing information, asking for her input. She learned more about Una, her childhood in Beverly Hills with her adopted parents, her career as an art curator, her marriage to Sungmin 4 years before her death. She learned about the night Una died, the rain, the winding road in Connecticut, the car that went off a cliff and into a river, the body that was never found. She learned about Sungmin's obsessive search, the 2 years he spent refusing to accept her death, the private investigators and the dive teams and the endless hope that she might somehow still be alive. And she learned about Taemin, Sungmin's older brother, the heir to the family empire who died in his own car accident 6 months before Una. Yiwon worked for him, Sungmin explained one evening. They were in his study, surrounded by files and photographs and the ghosts of the past. He was Taemin's right hand. When Taemin died, Yiwon lost everything. He blames me. Did you have anything to do with your brother's death? No, the answer came without hesitation. Taemin and I had our differences. He was older, more traditional. He thought I was too modern, too soft. But he was my brother. I would never have hurt him. Then who killed him? I don't know. The official investigation ruled it an accident, brake failure on a mountain road. But Yiwon never accepted that. He's been convinced it was murder ever since. And Una, was her death connected to Taemin's? Sungmin was quiet for a long moment. I never thought so. Taemin died in Korea. Una died here, 6 months apart. There was no obvious connection. But now I'm not sure of anything. Cynthia studied his face. In the dim light of the study, he looked older than his years, tired, haunted by questions he couldn't answer. She was starting to understand him. Not trust him, not yet, but understand him. He wasn't the monster Yi-Won claimed he was. He was a man drowning in grief and guilt and unanswered questions. A man who had grabbed onto her face like a lifeline because it was the closest he had come to Yuna in 3 years. It wasn't healthy, it wasn't okay, but she understood it. What if they're connected? She asked. Taemin's death and Yuna's. What if someone wanted them both dead? Then we need to find out who and why. The breakthrough came 2 weeks after Cynthia's kidnapping. Sungmin's investigators had traced the adoptions, followed the paper trails, tracked down social workers and hospital records and sealed files. They found the truth. Cynthia and Yuna had been born to a young woman named Jaeyeon Kim. She was Korean, barely 20 years old. Their father was an American man named James Brooks. He was black, from Newark, working as a musician trying to make it in the jazz scene. They had fallen in love, had 2 daughters together, Yuna first, then Cynthia 3 years later. But Jaeyeon died during Cynthia's birth, complications that the small clinic couldn't handle. She was gone before James could even hold his newborn daughter. James was destroyed. A 23-year-old man with no family support, no money, and 2 children he didn't know how to raise. He made a decision that would shape both of their lives. He gave them up. Yuna, at 3 years old, was adopted by a wealthy Korean family in Los Angeles. The Parks had connections, money, and a strong desire for a daughter. Cynthia, a newborn with no memory of her family, went into the foster care system. James disappeared after that, fell apart from guilt and grief. He died of an overdose 5 years later, never knowing what happened to his daughters. 2 sisters, same blood, same face, separated by circumstance and never knowing the other existed. Until now. Cynthia processed the information in the bedroom that had become her prison and her refuge. She had a history now, a story, parents with names and faces and a tragic love that had brought her into the world. Her mother was Korean, her father was black. That was why she and Yuna looked so similar despite their different skin tones. The same facial structure, the same features, the same blood. She understood now why she had always felt like a ghost, like a piece of something larger that she couldn't quite grasp. She was half of a set, a twin to a sister she would never know. And someone had killed that sister. The grief and the rage tangled together in her chest until she couldn't tell them apart anymore. She needed answers. She needed justice. She needed to look into the eyes of whoever had taken Yuna from this world and make them pay. The video arrived at midnight. Cynthia was asleep when the phone buzzed. Not her phone, a burner device that had been smuggled into her room somehow. She didn't know how. She didn't know by whom. The message was simple, just a link. She shouldn't have clicked it. She knew that. Any sensible person would have brought it straight to Sungmin. But sensible had gone out the window weeks ago. She clicked the link. The video was grainy, security footage from what looked like a highway somewhere. The timestamp said it was from 3 years ago, the night Yuna died. Cynthia watched as a car moved along the winding road. A silver sedan. Yuna's car, she realized. The car she had been driving when she went off the cliff. There was another car behind it, black, expensive, following too close. The black car accelerated, drew up alongside Yuna's sedan, and then, deliberately, viciously, it swerved. The silver car spun, hit the guardrail, went over. Cynthia's hand flew to her mouth as she watched her sister's car disappear into the darkness below. The black car stopped. A figure got out, walked to the edge of the cliff and looked down. Then it got back in the car and drove away. Murder, clear as day. Yuna hadn't died in an accident. She had been run off the road, killed deliberately by someone in that black car. Cynthia paused the video, rewound it, watched the moment of impact again. The black car, something about it was familiar. She zoomed in on the license plate. The image was blurry, but she could make out enough. Her blood went cold. She recognized that plate. She had seen it in the parking garage of this very building. It was Sungmin's car. The confrontation happened in the study. Cynthia burst through the doors without knocking, the burner phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. Sungmin looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face. How did you get out of? You killed her. Cynthia's voice was steady, cold, the voice of a woman who had just watched her sister die. You killed my sister. Sungmin went very still. What are you talking about? She threw the phone at him. It skidded across the desk and stopped against his keyboard. Watch it. He picked up the phone, pressed play, watched. Cynthia saw his face change as the video progressed. Confusion, horror, and something else, something that looked like recognition. When the video ended, he was pale. His hands were shaking. That's my car. I know. But I wasn't driving it. He looked up at her, desperation in his eyes. Cynthia, I swear to you I wasn't driving that car. I was in Seoul. I have records, flight logs, witnesses. I was on the other side of the world when Yuna died. Then explain the video. I can't. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its careful styling. Someone took my car. Someone used it too, his voice broke. Someone used it to kill her and frame me. Cynthia wanted to believe him. Despite everything, despite the kidnapping and the captivity and the insanity of her situation, she wanted to believe him. But the video was clear, and trust was not something she gave easily. How do I know you're telling the truth? I'll show you the flight records, the security footage from the airport in Seoul, the witnesses who can confirm I was there. Records can be faked, witnesses can be bought. Then what do you need? What will it take for you to believe me? Cynthia stared at him, at the desperation in his eyes, the grief that seemed to have cracked him wide open. Let me go, she said. If you're innocent, let me go. Let me take this video to the police. Let them investigate. Sungmin's jaw tightened. The police can't help you. This goes deeper than local law enforcement. Whoever did this has connections, power. They'll bury the investigation before it starts. Then we go to the FBI. Same problem. So what? We just let them get away with it. No, his voice hardened. We find them ourselves, we build an airtight case, and then we destroy them. Cynthia laughed bitterly. We? There is no we, you're my kidnapper. You might be my sister's killer. Why would I ever work with you? Because I'm the only one with the resources to find the truth, and because you want justice for Yuna as much as I do. She hated that he was right, hated that she needed him, hated the entire twisted situation she had found herself in. But she did need him. She was trapped in his world, surrounded by his enemies, with no phone and no money and no way out. If she wanted answers, she had to play his game. For now. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. We work together, but if I find out you're lying, if I find any evidence that you killed my sister, I will destroy you myself. Sungmin met her eyes. If I killed Yuna, I'll hand you the weapon. The investigation that followed was intense. Sungmin pulled in every resource he had, private investigators, tech experts, former intelligence operatives who owed him favors. They traced the black car from the video. It had been stolen from Sungmin's private garage and returned before anyone noticed it was missing. The security footage from that night had been erased. They analyzed the video frame by frame. The figure who got out of the car was wearing a hood, face obscured. But their build, their gait, it matched someone in Sungmin's inner circle. They dug into Taemin's death, found inconsistencies in the official report. Brake failure, they said, but the mechanic who inspected the car had been paid off, and the investigator who closed the case had retired to a mansion he couldn't possibly afford on his salary. The pieces started coming together. Both deaths were murders. Both murders were connected. And both led back to one person. Cynthia was beginning to understand the shape of the conspiracy. Someone had killed Taemin, then 6 months later killed Yuna, both deaths made to look like accidents, both investigations quietly buried. But who and why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Vincent Cho was Sungmin's accountant, a nervous little man who had worked for the Park family for 15 years. He handled the legitimate side of the business: taxes, investments, property holdings. He also, apparently, knew things he wasn't supposed to know. Sungmin and Cynthia flew to Palo Alto to meet with him. Vincent had refused to discuss anything over the phone. Too risky, he said, too many ears listening. They met in a private conference room at a tech company Sungmin owned. Vincent was sweating when they walked in, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "You need to understand," he said before they even sat down. "I didn't know what was happening. I just followed orders. I just did my job." "Start from the beginning," Sungmin said. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Vincent swallowed hard. "It started about 4 years ago. Money started moving through the accounts in ways that didn't make sense. Small amounts at first, then larger. I traced it to a shell company based in Singapore." "Who was behind the shell company?" "I don't know, but whoever it was had access to your personal accounts, your private accounts, the ones only family can touch." Sungmin's face went hard. "Only family." "I thought it was you at first, or maybe one of your cousins. I didn't ask questions. I just processed the transfers." "How much?" Vincent's hands trembled. "Over 4 years, nearly $50 million. The number hung in the air. Cynthia saw Sungmin's jaw tighten. "You're saying someone in my family has been stealing from me for 4 years, and you never said anything." "I tried," Vincent's voice cracked. "I tried to bring it up once with T-Min before he died." The room went very quiet. "What did T-Min say?" "He said he'd look into it. That was 2 weeks before his accident." Vincent's eyes filled with tears. "Then Yuna died and everything was chaos, and I thought if I kept my head down, I'd be safe." Cynthia leaned forward. "Safe from who?" "From whoever killed them. Don't you understand?" Vincent looked between them with wild eyes. "T-Min and Yuna both found out about the money, and they both died. Whoever is behind this, they don't leave loose ends." Sungmin's voice was low, dangerous. "Who do you think is behind it?" Vincent hesitated. His whole body was shaking now. "Your brother," he finally whispered. "T-Min. T-Min is dead." "Is he?" Vincent laughed, the sound hysterical. "Because the money has kept moving, even after his death. Someone is still accessing those accounts, someone with family-level clearance, and the only person who would benefit from killing both T-Min and Yuna is." He trailed off. Sungmin finished the thought for him. Someone pretending to be dead. The revelation changed everything. T-Min wasn't dead. His car accident had been staged. He had faked his own death to escape something, or to become something else entirely. And then he had killed Yuna when she got too close to the truth. Sungmin's own brother, his own blood. Cynthia watched Sungmin process this information, watched the grief and the rage battle for control of his face, watched him struggle to accept that the family he thought he knew had been a lie. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why would T-Min do this?" "Power," Vincent suggested weakly. "Money. He always resented being passed over for the leadership role. When your father chose you instead of him, he was furious." "That was years ago. He said he accepted it." "He lied. He's been building something in the shadows ever since. His own network, his own empire, funded by your money." Cynthia thought about Yiwon, about his accusations, his insistence that Sungmin had killed T-Min. "Yiwon," she said suddenly. "He works for T-Min, he must know the truth." "Yiwon thinks I killed his master. He's been trying to destroy me for years." "Or maybe he knows T-Min is alive. Maybe he's been working for him this whole time." Sungmin's eyes widened. "The break-in. The night Yiwon came for you, he said the dead woman walks. He knew. He was there to take you to T-Min." Everything clicked into place. T-Min was alive. He had killed Yuna because she discovered his survival. And now he was coming for Sungmin, using Cynthia, the woman who looked exactly like the wife he murdered, as a weapon. "We need to find him," Cynthia said, "before he finds us." Vincent was dead by the next morning. They found his body in his hotel room, throat slit, a note pinned to his chest with 2 words. "Coming for you." T-Min knew they were onto him, and he was sending a message. The fragile peace that had developed between Cynthia and Sungmin hardened into something stronger. They were no longer just captor and captive. They were allies facing a common enemy. An enemy who had killed Cynthia's sister. An enemy she was determined to destroy. They returned to New York under heavy security. Sung Min had tripled his personal guard. Every car was swept for tracking devices. Every entrance was monitored. Every person who came near them was vetted and revetted. It wasn't enough. Min had spent 3 years building his network in the shadows. He had people everywhere, in Sung Min's businesses, in his home, in his inner circle. The betrayal came from the last person they expected. Hana, Sung Min's personal assistant, the woman who had been with him for 8 years, the woman who knew every detail of his life, his schedule, his security protocols. Cynthia woke in the middle of the night to find Hana standing over her bed with a knife. "I'm sorry," Hana whispered. Her face was wet with tears. "But he pays me more." Cynthia screamed. The knife came down. Cynthia rolled, the blade slicing through her pillow where her head had been a moment before. Feathers exploded into the air. She kept rolling, falling off the bed and scrambling across the floor. Hana pursued her. The knife glinted in the moonlight streaming through the windows. Her face was twisted with fear and desperation. "I didn't want to do this," she said. "I liked you, but I don't have a choice." Everyone has a choice. Cynthia grabbed a lamp from the nightstand and hurled it at Hana's head. The woman ducked, but it bought Cynthia time to get to her feet. The door burst open. Sung Min was there, 2 guards behind him. His eyes took in the scene in an instant, the knife, the destroyed pillow, the terror on Cynthia's face. He moved before anyone else could react. He had Hana's wrist in his grip, twisting until she cried out and dropped the knife. His guards grabbed her, forcing her to her knees. "How long?" His voice was ice, cold and sharp and deadly. "How long have you been working for him?" Hana sobbed. 3 years, since before Yuna died. He reached out to me after Min's accident, said he had survived, said he was building something new, said I could be part of it. "You helped him kill Yuna." "No, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know he was going to kill her. I just passed information. Schedules. Locations. I didn't know what he was planning." Sung Min's face was a mask of barely controlled rage. "Take her. Lock her up. Don't let anyone near her until I decide what to do." The guards dragged Hana away. Her sobs echoed down the hallway. Sung Min turned to Cynthia. "Are you hurt?" She was shaking, her whole body trembling with adrenaline and fear and the realization of how close she had come to death. "How many more?" she demanded. "How many of your people are working for your brother?" He didn't answer. He didn't have one. The next few days were a purge. Sung Min went through his entire organization with brutal efficiency. Everyone was investigated. Everyone was questioned. Everyone was tested. He found 3 more traitors. All of them had been recruited by Min over the past 3 years. All of them had been feeding information to his network. The empire Sung Min thought he controlled had been compromised from within. His own brother had been watching him, manipulating him, positioning pieces on a board Sung Min didn't even know existed. And now Min was ready to make his move. The message arrived on a Thursday evening. It was addressed to Cynthia. Inside was a photograph. Monique, her best friend from Newark, bound to a chair with tape over her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror. And a note. "Come alone, Newark Warehouse District, midnight. Or I send her back to you in PICES. It's obviously a trap." Sung Min was packing his study like a caged tiger. His guards stood at attention around the room, awaiting orders. Cynthia sat in a chair by the window, the photograph clutched in her hands. Monique's terrified face stared back at her. "I know it's a trap." "Then you know you can't go." "I know I can't let her die." Cynthia looked up at him. "She's the only family I have, the only person who gave a damn about me when I had nothing. I'm not letting her die because some psychopath wants to get to me. If you go, you'll die, and then she'll die anyway." "Then I won't die," she stood up. "I'll go in, I'll distract him, and your people will get her out. He'll have a small army waiting for you. Then bring a bigger one." Sung Min stopped packing. He looked at her with something that might have been admiration. "You're serious?" "I'm always serious about people I love." He studied her for a long moment. The woman who had walked into his office a month ago as a stranger. The woman who looked like his dead wife but was nothing like her. The woman who had gone from prisoner to partner in the strangest circumstances imaginable. "All right," he said finally. "We do this together, but you follow my lead. You do exactly what I say. And if things go wrong, you run, you don't look back, you don't try to save anyone, you run." "I don't run." "You'll learn." The warehouse was in the heart of Newark's industrial district, a massive brick building that had once housed a textile factory. Now it was empty, abandoned, the perfect place for a trap. Cynthia approached the entrance alone. Well, not entirely alone. She had a wire hidden in her clothes, an earpiece tucked into her ear, and somewhere in the darkness around her, Sungmin's people were waiting. But to anyone watching, she was a lone woman walking into the mouth of the beast. The doors were unlocked. She pushed them open and stepped inside. The interior was vast and empty. Concrete floors, metal rafters high overhead, broken windows that let in shafts of pale moonlight. And in the center of it all, Monique. She was tied to a chair, just like in the photograph, tape over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. And standing behind her, one hand on her shoulder, was a man who looked like a twisted reflection of Sungmin. T-Min. He was older than Sungmin by a few years. Similar build, similar features, but where Sungmin's face was controlled and intense, T-Min's was cruel, cold, the face of a man who had lost whatever humanity he once possessed. "Cynthia," he smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. "So good of you to come." "Let her go." "All in good time." He gestured to the empty space around them. "First, let's have a conversation." "I have nothing to say to you." "No, not even thank you, for bringing you and your sister together in a sense." His smile widened. "Oh, that's right, you never got to meet her, because I killed her." Cynthia felt rage surge through her chest. Hot and blinding. She wanted to charge at him, to tear him apart with her bare hands. But Monique was right there. One wrong move and she was dead. "Why?" she forced herself to ask. "Why did you kill her?" "Because she was going to ruin everything." T-Min began to circle Monique's chair, one hand trailing across her shoulders. "My dear, meddling sister-in-law, she found out I was alive, found out about the money. She was going to tell Sungmin I couldn't let that happen." "So you murdered her?" "I removed a threat. There's a difference." "And Sungmin, what about him?" T-Min's expression darkened. "My brother, the golden child, the chosen one." He spat the words like poison. "Our father gave him everything, the business, the network, the respect. And what did he give me? Second place, always second place." "So this is about jealousy." "This is about justice." T-Min's voice echoed off the walls. "I built as much of this empire as he did. I sacrificed just as much. And I was pushed aside like garbage, so I took what I deserved. I built my own network, my own power. And now I'm going to take everything from him, just like he took everything from me. By killing innocent people, by murdering your sister-in-law, by kidnapping my friend." T-Min's cold smile returned. "Collateral damage. In war, sacrifices must be made." "There is no war. There's just a bitter, broken man who couldn't handle not being special." T-Min's face twisted with rage. He started toward her, his hand raised. The doors exploded. Sungmin's men came pouring in from every entrance, armed, coordinated, moving with military precision. T-Min's people responded. Gunfire erupted. The warehouse became a battlefield. Cynthia dove for Monique. She reached the chair, tearing at the ropes binding her friend's wrists. I've got you. We're getting out of here." Monique was sobbing. The tape came off her mouth and she gasped for air. "Cynthia, behind you." She spun. T-Min was there, a gun in his hand, aimed at her head. "You think you can take everything from me?" he snarled. I won't let any of you." A shot rang out. But it didn't come from T-Min's gun. Sungmin stood 10 feet away, his weapon raised, smoke curling from the barrel. T-Min looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest. He looked back at his brother. Confusion, disbelief, and then, finally, something that might have been acceptance. "You always were the better shot," he said. And then he fell. 3 months later. Cynthia stood at the window of her new apartment in Manhattan, watching the city come alive below her. The sun was just rising, painting the skyscrapers in shades of gold, pink, and orange. The coffee in her hand was warm, and for the first time in months, she felt something close to peace. 3 months since the warehouse. 3 months since T-Min fell. 3 months since the nightmare finally ended. So much had changed. T-Min had survived the gunshot. Barely. The bullet had missed his heart by inches, and Sung-min's men had gotten him medical attention before he could bleed out. Now he was in federal custody, awaiting trial on charges that would keep him locked away for the rest of his life. The FBI had been building a case against him for years, and Sung-min's evidence sealed it. He will never see freedom again. Sung-min dismantled the criminal side of his empire. He kept the legitimate businesses, tech, real estate, hospitality, and went fully legal. It wasn't easy. Many people tried to stop him, but he was done living in the shadows. Cynthia's interior design business exploded. Her connection to Sung-min brought high-profile clients, but she earned their respect with her talent alone. She opened a studio in Manhattan and hired young designers from foster care. She's building the support system she never had. Cynthia visits Yuna's grave for the first time. She sits on the grass and talks to her sister like she's right there. "I wish I'd known you. I think we would have been close, but I promise I'll live enough for both of us." Sung-min finds her there. He places flowers beside hers. "She would have loved you," he says quietly. Cynthia looks up at him. "And you, do you finally see me, not her?" He kneels beside her, takes her hand. "I see you, Cynthia. I've seen you for a while now, and I'm asking if you'll let me to see you for a lot longer." Cynthia doesn't answer with words. She leans in and kisses him. It's not a replacement, not an obsession. It's something new, something real. 6 months later, Cynthia and Sung-min host a charity gala for foster youth in Newark, where Cynthia grew up, where everything came full circle. Monique is there, thriving as Cynthia's business partner. Sung-min watches Cynthia give a speech about second chances, about family you find instead of family you're born into. He smiles, a real smile, the first one in years. After the event, they stand outside the venue, looking at the Newark skyline. "You know," Cynthia says, "when you kidnapped me, I never thought this is where we'd end up." Sung-min wraps his arm around her. "Neither did I, but I wouldn't change a thing." Cynthia laughs. "I would change a few things, maybe less kidnapping next time." Noted. They walk into the future together, two broken people who found healing in the strangest circumstances. The obsession became protection. The captive became a partner. The ghost became a real woman. And for the first time in years, both of them had something they thought they'd lost forever. A family. Thank you for watching to the end. Please remember to click the subscribe button and make sure you like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you.